welcome back to the podcast. This week I'm joined by the fabulous Laura Jean Marsh. Laura Jean Marsh is a famous writer, actor and director of successful 2021 film Giddy Stratospheres. Laura started out in the Screaming Ballerinas, her band that she fronted in the noughties. She also DJ'd before finding her way into acting, and then from that point on to writing and directing her own film. We spoke about all of this, plus I got a insight into what it was like for a female in the music industry, and then at the end we spoke about our 4 heroes to come for dinner. I hope you all enjoy the podcast. I'll be back again very soon with another fabulous guest. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Laura Jean Marsh, famous actor, writer and director of hit film Giddy Stratospheres, amongst hundreds of other things, DJing, frontwoman in a band, lots of things to talk about. So what I usually start off with in the podcast, if you just get back to the start, tell me what life was like growing up and how that kind of shaped you in your route into who you are now.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on. God, where do I start? Well, I was born in Trowbridge, which is like a little West Country town just outside of Chippenham and Swindon. So it's like sort of proper farmer land. And yeah, it's quite a kind of incestuous suburban countryside town. And I grew up there in my grand's house, me and my family, my mum, my dad, and my 2 big brothers. And we all grew up I started off there for the first 3 years of my life. And then my parents split up when I was 3. And I moved to, my mum and my brothers and I all moved to Bath, which was nearby, and the nearest place that my mum kind of wanted to start again. So we moved to a little flat there, and I went to school there. And my brothers are a lot older than me, so they left home way before I did. And yeah, my family are all pretty creative. My dad is a musician. My oldest brother is a musician also. He's a big influence on me, and introduced me to a lot of the films and music that sort of influenced me. And yeah, I mean, I was a creative kid. Coming from a family of musicians, it was sort of inevitable that I'd pick up a guitar, and that's kind of what my whole life was really until sort of my mid-20s. So I went to a school. My secondary school was an all-girls school, but it was a pretty rough state school. It was a bit like a mental asylum. It kind of looked like a mental asylum and felt like one. But I had a great art teacher there. The music department wasn't great. It was kind of covered in cobwebs and forgotten about, right. Which was a shame. But luckily I had, like I said, my brothers were musical, my dad was as well. So I had that at home, And I kind of did a runner, really. I couldn't hack being in a small town. And my brother at that point was living in London. And I think what really did it for me was when I was 15, I went to Glastonbury Festival and watched loads of bands, and went to Reading Festival and watched loads of bands just for one day for both of them. And then I was just done, really. I was like, well, fuck this. I'm moving to London, I'm going to start a band. So that's kind of summing up my childhood, really. I didn't really feel that comfortable in a small town, and I didn't really feel happy in school. So I had a great art teacher who was very inspiring, but I just wanted to be where the music was and where people were starting bands and stuff like that. So that's what I did.
I find that quite a lot with schools, like you're saying, the music department was pretty shitty. I find that a lot with bands where they don't really do much at school. Like the music departments don't seem to be very good up and down the country, and it's mainly kind of self-taught at home that kind of gets you there, innit?
Yeah.
What sort of bands were you into then when you were going to Glastonbury and Reading?
Well, I mean, I was brought up listening to loads of sort of 80s and 90s stuff. So I was really into Britpop. I was really into the Smiths. I was really into sort of New York sort of punk and stuff like that. And my dad, you know, was really into Beatles and Cream and stuff like that. So I had all sorts of influence coming from everywhere. So I was like a real music geek. I was obsessed with Nirvana and stuff like that, but obviously all that stuff wasn't available in the mid 90s. So I think the first bands I remember, the years I went to, so I saw No Doubt live at Glastonbury and saw the Chemical Brothers, and I think at Reading I saw Placebo, and I think Rage Against the Machine. It was that year, but I think, you know, I think it was before the Libertines had just sort of, I think the Strokes was what did it for me really, because even though they weren't a UK band, when that first album came out, it really did sort of, there was not that, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, but there wasn't a lot really scene wise until the Strokes. I'm sure that everyone said this to you on this pod, that when the Strokes sort of first album came out, it kind of kicked everyone's asses into gear, and lots of amazing stuff started happening here as well. So I think it was the Strokes that did it for me, and then it kind of opened up. I started getting really into lots of American Riot Girl stuff, and my kind of geeky music taste started sort of expanding into different areas. I was obsessed with The Cure. And I think I went to a kind of indie club night. I was way too young in London. I was way too young to go to it. I think I was about 16. And I met a couple of girls at Reading Festival when I was 15, who then invited me to a club night at it was in Tufnell Park. It was a club night on New Year's Eve. So I came down and stayed with them for the night. I'm not sure how I persuaded my parents to let me do that, but they were playing everything from the Strokes to, like, you know, all those indie bangers that we loved back then. And I just, I had to move here, really.
Class. I mind when the Strokes came out, I think I went to see them. I think they played like 2 gigs in London, and then they ended up on the T in the Park bill. I think somebody pulled out a T in the Park and they were put in, and they weren't even announced. It was just like a kind of surprise. And I was down the front at the main stage, and they came on. And it felt like nobody else around me knew who they were.
Mm.
And like, as soon as I seen the silhouette of them coming on the stage, the hairstyles and all that, I knew exactly who they were. One of the best gigs in my life, one of the best sets I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it was like ground zero when they appeared. And that's, I mean, again, that's a big constant theme of the podcast. Every day it comes on says the Strokes was the ones that kicked it all off. So you moved to London then. What did you form was that then when you formed the band?
It wasn't straight away. I think I got sucked into happily sucked into this exciting time where lots of people were starting bands, and there was a lot of club nights where there would be lots of new bands, and I made friends really quickly with some really creative, lovely sort of young kids that were a little older than me, but I was sort of welcomed in, and it felt really like family. So there was a lot of club nights going on where you'd have like 5 bands, and everyone would kind of know each other. And I was sort of writing songs. I started DJing badly, but in those days you'd be paid with drinks, and I started playing records and you know, in between bands at various different events and stuff, which was really great because, you know, if you're a music lover, it's kind of the best job when you're in your late teens and early 20s. And then I met a couple of musicians. The guy that I started Screaming Ballerinas. My band with is called Ollie Pound. We're still good mates. I was his best man at his wedding, best woman. And he and I developed some songs that I'd written on acoustic guitar. He was a really great sort of punk, anthemic punk guitarist, and he was a lot of fun. And we were quickly like siblings. And I think that was such a draw for me, because a lot of us were from other towns and we were kind of on our own in London. So being part of this music scene and being able to start bands and hang out together and feel close to each other was a really exciting time. So yeah, me and Ollie we developed some songs that I'd written, and we pulled in some other musicians, and yeah, it was a really exciting time, because I was kind of living the dream that I'd always hoped for, being in a little indie punk band. I don't think I ever really wanted to be like massively famous. I just wanted to be in a cool little band.
Yeah.
And we did our launch. Our first gig was at the Metro, which was on Oxford Street, which is no longer there, but was a really cool place to go and see sort of club nights and bands and stuff like that. And it was a really exciting night, because I don't think we knew that we were going to have the response that we did, but people really dug it. And after that, we just started getting booked for lots of gigs. And MySpace was a big thing then, as I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of fans, and especially in Italy, for some reason. What was so great about MySpace is even if you weren't signed, you could kind of spread the word. Mm-hmm. And in Italy, I think, especially in like Rome and Milan and some of the bigger towns and cities, they really loved female-fronted indie pop music.
Uh-huh.
Like they really did. There wasn't so much of a kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it was very blokey in the UK. There weren't that many female-fronted bands that were really doing well, but they really loved us over there. And so we were lucky, because we got to go and do a couple of like really fun tours over there and play really epic big gigs, and people knew all the words to the songs I'd written. It was insane. I was 19 and it was probably the first time in my life that I'd felt really properly happy and excited and felt like I was part of something. So yeah, that was some of the best times of my life, really.
I hadn't heard of the band up until a few weeks back, and I mean, I was watching some of the videos on YouTube this morning, and the band, I can't remember the name of the song, but dancing about with Margaret Thatcher mask and David Cameron mask, and it's probably resonates now as to what's going on in the country.
Yeah.
A brilliant song, but all the videos were class. And I'll
thank you.
Checking it more at.
Yeah, we didn't really get there here. I mean, it was tough. We got close. I think, yeah, it was tough because I was so young. So I was making these really big sort of not business, but it was a lot of responsibility, because it was my band and I was quite young. And although we were having a lot of fun, we got kind of, we had a couple of managers that really wanted to sell us as this big, mainstream label band. And I don't think we were really that. So we didn't really get the opportunity to just sort of exist. So they kept trying to, pimp us out to big labels. And I'm not sure if that really was what we wanted or what we were about. And I think after a while, we just felt like we were banging our heads against the wall. So we'd go over to Italy and do these amazing gigs and have lots of support. And then over here, I think, we just didn't quite get the leg up that we needed, really, which is a shame. But I still have lots of good memories from that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a band that could have went further. I think after watching your videos and things like that. The DJing then as well, I mean, that seems like just a right good job, just sitting there, just playing the tunes that you love, and you must get a buzz seeing people up on the dance floor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 36 now, and although lots of people still DJ at my age, I think I couldn't. I think with now that the way my career has gone in a different direction, I wouldn't be able to stay up until 3 a.m. But you know, it wouldn't work. But yeah, it was great fun, like especially then when it was all about partying and you know, music was so exciting, watching live music was so exciting, that when you get to DJ after seeing a band you love and everyone's jumping about to these massive indie bangers and stuff, it was the greatest job in the world. And I was doing it mainly with my best mate Eloise at the time. We ended up starting a club night as well, where we'd put lots of bands on called Dolly Rockers, and yeah, it was just sort of relentless, like crazy, like club stuff. So, you know, everyone felt really like they were part of something, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I think occasionally I still DJ at my friends' weddings, or like if I haven't done it for a while, since before COVID kicked off, but even I always said I didn't want to do it, and then whenever I was there doing it, I just absolutely love it. So it is a lot of fun. Yeah.
My friend, he does like a kind of Britpop indie night once a month, and I go to that every month, and I'm kind of like, you want to go to the bar now, day like an hour or something, because it's just dead easy, and it is some buzz, man, just watching every day, getting off on your games that you play. What happened then? When did the acting come about?
So when I was in the band, obviously I was meeting lots of people, and like, you know, there were a lot of comedians and you know, people that were making short films, people that were making comedy sketches and things like that. They were kind of weaving their way in and out of the same sort of scenes and club nights that I was a part of. And I just sort of, I started sort of getting, I was completely broke. I was working in a clothes shop and earning very little money from DJing and spending that all on booze and other things. And like, you know, just about making the rent. I was living above the shop I was working in this little shithole flat above a shop. And I suddenly started getting asked to like be in stuff and being offered like a bit more money than I was earning, you know, like bits and bobs. And I was like, oh, this is another thing I can do, you know, being on screen. And I just sort of really took to it. I absolutely loved acting. I loved being on set. And I think because I'd always been obsessed with filmmaking and movies, like almost, I would say music and movies and filmmaking were my kind of geeky subject matters that I would obsess about. And I think I just fell in love with being on set, really. And that was it. So I got an acting agent pretty quickly. And I started sort of using bits of money that I was earning through getting these little jobs here and there to kind of further my education in acting, you know, doing acting classes, making sure that I was doing the best I could. And then I kind of learned on the job, just kept getting, I got booked on playing little roles in things like Peep Show and Uncle, which had Nick Helm in it, which is why, you know, I ended up working with Nick again recently on my movie. And, you know, little sketch shows, comedy sketch shows like Dom Jolly and stuff like that. And it was just the most fun ever. I was just like, oh, shit, I can do this for a living. This is insane. Like, I've got something else. I had no education. I was like, oh, this is really lucky. Really lucky that I found something that I can do that I think I'm good at. And because I don't know, I think maybe because I was songwriting, I kind of fell out of love with the music industry. Not music itself, but the music industry sort of did me in, I think, because I was so young and it was just all quite stressful trying to feel responsible. I was feeling so responsible for this band that wasn't really getting anywhere, that I kind of just transferred that creative energy into this new sort of path for myself. And I think it kind of saved me, actually, because I could have gone in any direction, and that I you know, transferring all my creative energy into writing short films, you know, writing scripts and sketches and working with people. I must have been about 22, 23, and then since then it's been acting and writing and making my own stuff, and that's kind of what happened.
That's brilliant. I mean, like, all those shows like Dom Jolly, obviously legend.
Yeah.
Peep Show, one of the most successful British sitcoms, probably as well as Uncle. Like they're all good.
Yeah, I mean, I was tiny roles in those things, like, but it was still it was still a bit of a kind of introduction into a world that I really, I fell in love with it. It was so much fun, and I loved the kind of variety of doing something different every day. And I actually even enjoyed auditioning, going into a room and being put on the spot. I quite like the adrenaline of that as well.
Well, I mean, there must be some kind of adrenaline to the fact that you've had no training in any of this, and to just kind of find your way into it, and kind of as if you're kind of blagging your way into it, and then look where you're at now with a film and things like that. It's look back.
Yeah, there was a lot of blagging, and there was a lot of hard work. I think, I sometimes wish that I did have more training early on, or I kind of discovered that I wanted to act early on. But I think that all those years of being in a band and, all the life experience I had from such a young age has kind of benefited me with my writing and with my acting as well, because you can kind of, without any life experience or without experiencing any shit or any trauma or any, anything hard and anything high that's real, I think, it's quite hard to create stuff that you're, without any of that. So I think I've done all right despite the kind of lack of official training. But yeah, it would have been nice to have a bit of a proper education, but I think I don't really have any regrets.
Well, I mean, obviously, so you started off with acting. So if you're saying you've had like no training, how did the writing come about, and how hard was that? Obviously, we know.
Well, I think I'd always been writing sort of stories and scripts that I never used. Even when I was in a band, I was always writing ideas and bits and pieces, because I'm a bit of a sort of relentless creator. So I was always it was probably all shite, but I was always writing stuff. And I think from like, as soon as I started acting and I started learning more about the kind of machine of how you create stuff like short films and sketches and things like that, watching other people doing it, I was inspired and I got the confidence to do that myself. So I started writing short films and bringing together some of the people that I'd met from various different film crews that I'd really gelled with and got on with. And I just sort of did it. I think my advice to anyone out there that feels like they're not worthy of making stuff just because on paper they shouldn't do is just, if you've got an idea and you've got like, you're inspired to do something, you can do it. You can bring in people that support you, as long as you've got a good team around you that's helping you, and people that you care about working with you and care about the idea. You can kind of bring things to life. And that's what I did.
That's brilliant advice. My problem is I've got too many ideas, and they're all kind of floating about, fighting with each other.
Yeah, no, same, mate. I've always got too much going on. Yes, I'm always sifting through the shit and trying to work out what the good ideas are. And sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I don't. I think that's normal. You can't get it right every time.
So, what was your kind of first thing that you brought out that you wrote? It wasn't Giddy Stratospheres, was it? You had stuff.
No. I wrote the first short film I wrote and directed was called Devotion, and it was about a couple that were drug addicts, and it's kind of exploring the connections between different addictions. So it's kind of about the connection between love addiction and drug addiction. And that was the first thing I made with my friend Jake, who now lives in Australia. And that ended up winning loads of awards, actually. I mean, it was really cool because he was really positive to be around and very kind of full of beans and energy, and I was a little bit harder on myself but full of ideas. And we wrote this thing, and it was all shot in one take. It's like a one-shot film. And we worked with this amazing DP, and we entered it into loads of film festivals, and it did really well. And I think that was not that those things should matter, but it did kind of give me a little bit of a bit of kind of validation, I guess. Sometimes you do need a little bit of that. And then after that, I made another sort of 3 or 4 short films. I started writing sketches, and then I started getting quite a lot of acting work, which distracted me for a while. You know, lots of films where I was actually being cast in some proper productions, and I think I spent a few years just sort of working in other people's productions, but sort of getting better as an actor. So that kind of took over for a long time, but that was a great period of time as well, because I was, you know, working as a professional actor, and that I fucking love acting as well. So I think the two work hand in hand. And then I guess that kind of brings us almost up to date, because when COVID first kicked in, I suddenly had loads of time on my hands because I was at home like everyone was, and I wrote Giddy Stratospheres, which is my first feature film, and that's what brought us here.
Yeah, the thing with Giddy Stratospheres is kind of, I'm amazed that nobody had come up with the idea before, like the setting the noughties music scene, because it's something that's, for people our age, it's a massive scene, but there's been nothing out about it before. So was that kind of one of your reasons? Was that obviously for living through that scene? Was that prominent in your mind to do something?
Not really. I mean, I think what happened was I was on what triggered it off was I was on when we were only kind of allowed out for one bit of exercise every day. I've told this story before, so it's probably getting boring for people, but it's the truth. I mean, I went for a run in Pims Park in Edmonton, and I was listening to sort of indie bangers to kind of keep me going. And Giddy Stratospheres came on kind of just out of nowhere, and I, you know, from back in the day when we used to have those kind of 5 bands in a night, and you'd have all these great sort of acts that all kind of knew each other, either from London or from outside London. And Long Blondes, one of the most memorable gigs for me ever was Long Blondes played at Nambuka, which is a place I used to hang out in a lot with some really cool people, lots of creative young musicians and people putting on cool nights and stuff. And the Long Blondes gig was amazing because there was just glass and glitter everywhere, and everyone was going absolutely mental. And that really triggered off some memories for me of a couple of particular events in my life which shaped me and traumatized me. And I there was a few sort of heavy sort of moments that I'd never really explored, and I think I wrote about them. I think it was a coincidence really that it was set in that time. You know, it wasn't like I sat down and went, oh, indie noughties music, let's do this. I think it was more like me kind of coming to terms with and writing about a period of time in my life which shaped me and wasn't a particularly easy time to explore. And it made sense for me to bring that time to life. And obviously it was a lot of fun, you know, getting all the music together, and a lot of those bands that are on the soundtrack are and were friends of mine. So, you know, it was really exciting to be able to bring the storyline to life with that music, because that was the music that was sort of playing live and you know, in my headphones at the time. So I think it was kind of a coincidence in a way that it's become like the first noughties movie that anyone's made. I think it's been amazing that people have recognized that, but I can't say that was necessarily my plan. But I'm really proud of bringing all those tunes to the screen. and I think it really suits the storyline, and yeah, it was great fun contacting everyone and going, can I use your tune? And and everyone was so supportive, especially the Long Blondes, because they've been like part of the Giddy Stratospheres film family from the word go. So yeah.
Would you find it therapeutic doing something like that, because it's maybe kind of, you're able to kind of move on for that part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird this morning because I'm weirdly, since the film's been this year, like, so after Christmas it's just been released onto Amazon Prime, so you could buy it last year, but now it's free for Amazon Prime people with the membership. It suddenly had a new lease of life, so loads more people are watching it, and I'm getting so many messages from people that random people just on social media and stuff, just saying how much they've loved the film again. And it's being released worldwide this year as well, so it's out in the US and Canada and here, but it's going to be released in Europe and the rest of the world as well this year. So it's kind of this ongoing thing. So I do, even though it was therapeutic making the film, it was also quite hard, like emotionally for me, because I was dealing with a few issues of my own with the storyline, and it was also just a tough thing to pull off. And now the film is living on. I'm working on other ideas for my next projects, but Giddy's still living on. So I love having these chats with people, and I think every week I kind of I learn something else about it, if that makes sense. So yeah. It's not going to die. It's not going to die. I think I'm still kind of going through it a little bit with my emotions and how I feel about making it, to be honest.
Do you feel any pressure with like your upcoming projects, obviously because of how well received Giddy's been?
No, I think that I think it's only natural to feel nervous about new ideas, just because you want to be able to pull them off. But if anything, I just feel really excited about my new ideas, and I've got two things up my sleeve that I'm concentrating on first, and I've got a really great team behind me now, helping me kind of bring things to different platforms and stuff like that. So when we were in the editing process of Giddy, I sat down and I wrote an entire mini series set in the 90s called Stutter, which is kind of set in a alternate Britpop universe, and it just sort of poured out of me, and I'm really excited about that. And I've also written a kind of mockumentary film, which is inspired by Christopher Guest, sort of a little bit of Christopher Guest, set in a little village similar to the one I was born in, and I'm actually really excited about them because they're not sort of about me. I think Giddy's always going to be a little bit more of a stab in the heart for me, in terms of whenever I talk about it, it's always a bit more raw. But with these new ones, it's just like it's pure enjoyment, really, just talking about them and trying to get them off the ground and stuff. So I think I'm really excited, and I'm really proud of Giddy and what it's enabling me to do now. Yeah,
you built up a big fan base just due to this, you know what I mean? So if all the people that have watched the film follow you and watch what you've got up and coming, it's the sky's the limit, isn't it?
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. I think I don't want to be too complacent. I'd like to be able to the next project, I want it to be sort of bigger and better and a higher, because Giddy was such a tiny budget. We did a lot with what we had, and there was a lot of favors being brought in from people that cared about the project. Although everyone was paid, it was not the most amount of money in the world for everyone. And I think with this next couple of projects I've got coming, I really want to be able to raise the production value and make sure that it's a bit bigger, and I want to be able to achieve certain things, like with the 90s show, I want to be able to have big festival crowds, and just stuff like that, being able to have the finance to actually pull off some of these epic moments that I want to. So I'm excited to I feel really focused and excited to bring these new projects to life.
How was it working with Nick Helm and Richard Tarrant? Because I've had Nick Helm on the podcast, and probably it'd been around about the time when maybe you were shooting the film and things, which so I wasn't aware of. So I think I spoke to him for 2.5 hours, and there's no talk about Giddy Stratospheres in the podcast. But obviously he's a brilliant actor, brilliant writer and comedian. So how was it working with him on your film?
Nick's amazing. He's like, I love him, basically. I just think he's so talented in so many different ways. I mean, he's got so many strings to his bow. So from a fan's point of view, you know, I obviously I was really happy to have him play my brother. You know, my real brother, who he was playing, is my best mate and my biggest influence, and always been, you know, he's 11 years older than me, but we're like twins. It's really weird. Like we even when I was tiny, you know, him and I were really kind of close, and had similar sort of senses of humor, and he, like I said, he introduced me to all the movies and all the music that's kind of made me who I am. So I worked with Nick years ago, and you know, it was on a set, so we got on really well, but we were there to do a job. And when I wrote Giddy Stratospheres, I was like, oh God, I've got to get Nick Helm to play Tom, to play my brother, or he's called Tim in the film. Like, because he was just the perfect, to me, I just knew he'd be perfect for it. And I think he's an incredible actor. He's incredibly, like, for somebody that's such a big personality, when he's on set and when he's acting, it's like a real masterclass in how to be real, because he just sort of slips into it, and he's an incredible actor. But yeah, I was desperate to get him, and I sent him the script, and he said yes. And then, you know, when we were on set, he was just incredibly supportive, and obviously it was a lot of stress for me, and it was a lot for me because I was making this film about things that were quite stressful, and also I was trying to kind of direct and produce. I didn't produce the whole, I mean, my friend Beth was the main kind of producer on the film, but I was overseeing a lot of stuff and also trying to handle a massive cast during COVID. So it was a lot, you know, it was a bit like being a head teacher as well. But Nick was like a big brother, you know, and my real big brother lives in New York, and I miss him a lot, and we usually see each other a lot, but because of COVID we haven't been able to see each other for a couple of years now. So having Nick about, you know, obviously I didn't put too much pressure on him to pretend to be my brother in real life, but he was very much like just very loving and very supportive, and he's just a really good bloke. And he absolutely smashes the role. So yeah, big love for Nick. And Richard Herring, I just, again, like when I wrote the part, those scenes, I was like, oh, Richard Herring has got to play this, he's got to play Murray, like, because, you know, there was, I won't do any spoilers, I'm terrible for always giving away stuff with the film, but I just knew that he'd be perfect for it. And sorry, my cat is about to attack us, but hopefully she won't meow. No, Panda, I'm doing a podcast. So yeah, Rich said yes straight away as well. And he was an absolute joy. Again, really supportive, and a really good actor as well. I think because he's so famous in his own right for being a comedian, for having this podcast, and for being such a big personality. I don't think he'd done any much acting for a while, but he was just so charismatic and so brilliant. And yeah, he smashed it. And he's someone I'm happy to still have in my life. And I've got a couple of characters in mind that I want him to play in my next things as well. So yeah, I'm really lucky to have those guys in my universe now, in my stratosphere.
But you have people that actually kind of lean on and bounce ideas off as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely I'm not much of a dictator when it comes to my scripts. Like I like it when people improvise around them, and I sort of want things to feel real. And Rich was just, his improvisation as that character, like we were just, all trying not to laugh. Yeah. When we were in those, the church scene in particular is a really heavy moment, although there's comedic elements in there. Sorry, the listeners can't actually see what's going on, but Panda's got her ass in my face. Even though those heavy moments were like, heavy tear-jerking moments, Rich's character is so silly and so funny, and he just made us laugh all the time. He's just got that natural charisma that I'm really lucky I got in there for Murray.
Yeah, it's a brilliant film, and if any of my listeners haven't watched it, I would urge you, there'll be a link in the description and all that for them to find it. But it's a brilliant, excellent film.
Oh mate, that really means a lot to me, thank you.
Yeah, the soundtrack, even just I listen to the soundtrack 3 or 4 times a week on my way to work.
That's so cool.
I bounce between Giddy Stratospheres soundtrack and Mind the Book. What's the book called? Meet Me in the Bathroom by Lizzie Goodman.
Yeah, it's a great book. I've got it here actually.
As well. I get the soundtrack for that. I just bounce between these two when I'm walking to my work. Brilliant soundtrack.
Oh, that's cool.
I think my cat's outside fighting now as well.
I love it with big attack. Oh, and your dog.
Yeah, he's
fresh from the vet.
Obviously, just getting back to the.
Come on, I want to meet the dog. This isn't much fun for people listening, but I want to meet the dog.
No.
Yeah. Is it a lad?
He's a he's a boy. He's a Labrador dog.
He's a boy. What's his name?
Dylan.
Oh, hello, mate. Dylan.
Yeah.
Hello, Dylan. Oh, he's so sweet. He doesn't seem too traumatized from his vet experience.
He's fine.
He's fine. He's a tough guy.
So just touching back on the naughty scene and you being a female, because I've only had yourself and Gemma Clark for Baby Shambles. She's only a female I've had on. Obviously, there've been things that came to light here the last few months with kind of safer gigs for women and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm a fan of the Snuts. I think it was November, they stopped a show and posted on social media about males being arseholes at gigs, basically, and things like that. So just kind of, what was your experience the music scene as a female back then?
Well, I do have, before I was in a band, I definitely have memories of, crowd surfing at festivals and people, because I was always really like going mental in mosh pits and when I watched gigs, I kind of bugger off on my own and leave my friends so that I could be down the front. I was one of those sorts of guys. And I would, if I ever wanted to crowd surf, which I did a lot, you'd get groped pretty much every time. And you'd kind of I was quite a feisty little teen, so I'd kick at people if they did it, but it's weird because you just sort of look back on it and you're like, that's fucked up. That's really fucked up that you just not just one guy, not with just one cunt in the crowd. It was just like every time it would be like, oh, free for all. And that's really fucked up. So I think, I'm friends with Jason from Sleaford Mods, and he's an absolute legend because he always calls it out and always makes a point of saying something at gigs about that in a really direct way. So I think that having men who are sort of idolized in these bands and or artists in general calling it out so that people maybe think twice about it, I think does help. But yeah, it definitely was an issue and it still is an issue, that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that a lot of other girls wouldn't kick somebody and would feel really traumatized, and it's fucked up, mate. Yeah, It really is. And I think it's just about, I think we're lucky that people talk about it more now and people shed more light on it as being a problem. Because when you're younger, I think girls can be prone to feeling like they've done something wrong themselves, and that's why it happens, which is a much bigger issue to talk about. You know, I think just in general, just not making it about there's something that we've done or it's something we have to do to change. It definitely needs to be those individuals, not all guys, you know, not all men do it, but there are a large group of people that do. And I think in those kind of almost like fate, you're almost like, you know, with thousands of people in a crowd, you can kind of go unnoticed almost doing something like that. So I think that
I can't mind it happening, but it was obviously I can't mind like seeing any incidents or anything like that when I was going to gigs all the years ago, but it was happening, and it's only kind of nowadays where people are speaking about it more, and see as soon as it happens, you do notice it. I mean, as I say, the Snot spoke out about it in the start of November, and I went to a gig with my wife the end of November, and there was a fight between two guys here above because stuff like that happening. So the minute that there's a bit of prominence and a bit of light shed on it is good. It gets the awareness out there and people are then able to see what's going on.
I think it's even just good, you know, this, I would imagine, I don't want to assume, but you know, it was quite a male dominant era, that the noughties indie music scene. I mean, there were loads of amazing female fronted and bands with all girls in, you know, or a couple of members that were girls. There was loads of women about. It's just that the big names at the top, covers of the Enemy and you know, most of the bands that were making all the money and you know, headlining were men. But I think that just, you know, you even mentioning it and anybody talking about it is a good thing. But in terms of the actual music industry at the time, I think that I don't think my band were the best band in the world, but we certainly had a couple of big tunes. But I think I was always told that female fronted indie rock music didn't sell. So I would find myself in these offices with my manager and my band, and they would say, you know, just, you know, Karen O and the AES were kind of doing really well, but there wasn't much else, you know, there weren't many ladies, and I think people want to make money, so we were constantly told that we just wouldn't make it, we wouldn't get anywhere. So that's a bit of a kick in the teeth, you know. But luckily things are really different now, and there's lots of amazing women and LGBTQ artists are doing really well, and things are much more open. So
it's mental to think that kind of you were getting told stuff like that and like you'll not make it, because I mean, there must have been plenty of money to be made for bands like that if there wasn't that many female fronted bands out there. It's surely a market that anybody with a bit of kind of financial sense would kind of want to exploit you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I was so young then. I think I can't really give an informed opinion on what it really was, because I was so young. I think I still regress a little bit when I talk about it, because I can only see it really from the perspective of my 19-20-year-old self. But I do remember feeling just like, this is a bit unfair, you know, there's just all these lads, you know, hard fire on the cover of the Enemy again. and like I'm there, you know, third on the bill, and you know, it was kind of, again, I don't think we were the best band in the world, but we did have a couple of bangers, and we weren't really given the opportunity to get them out there, which is a shame. And like I said, there were loads of bands that had women in them, and really good ones, you know, and it was a shame that we didn't. But things have changed. I think things are moving on, and there's lots of amazing ladies out there doing well. So, but it was tough. Yeah, it was. I did get, my confidence was really knocked, and it took me a while to get it back. But I think I got it back through my new career. But it was tough being a woman, for sure. A girl, I should say. I was a little girl. Yeah.
Well, I'll be posting links to your Screaming Ballerinas as well. That'll be with some links to that for people to check out as well. So you might get kind of some fans. You'll be bombarded with that now. So obviously,
I don't know. Yeah, hope. Cool.
Before we go, obviously the podcast called Time for Heroes, and I asked for 4 heroes to come for a dinner. And, obviously, I say 4, but I mean there can be as many as you want. There can be honorary men.
Oh, okay.
Because it is really hard to narrow it down. So, but I just fire away with you.
Well, I thought about it because I have a lot of heroes, but I was thinking about who would be good crack, you know. So I've got Bjork. Bjork's one of my biggest influences just in general. And she's a bit mad, so I think that'd be quite fun. I've got David Lynch, who's probably my biggest influence as a director.
Right.
I've got Jack Nicholson, who's my favorite actor of all time, and he's got to be a lot of fun. Also, I have this weird idea. I don't know. No one's seen him for years. He hasn't appeared like in public for years, and I think I have this weird feeling he might be dead. There's this like loads of people. There's like this rumor going around that Jack Nicholson is actually not alive anymore. I'm like, I'd like to invite him to my dinner party just to see if he's alive. And there's an amazing American comedian called Wanda Sykes. Don't know if you know Wanda. She's really fucking funny. So those are my 4 because I think it would be really fucking fun. I did have Bowie, but I reckon like everybody, you've probably had a few people say Bowie, so I didn't say that. And I did have Christopher Walken, and I have no idea why, but I just thought he'd be fun as well. And yeah, some of my other heroes are like I just thought wouldn't be, they're really talented but might not be good chat. And I'm gonna, what was the other thing you wanted to ask me? What I was gonna cook or something? What I was gonna cook these guys.
It's just really to find out if you're any good at cooking.
I am actually. I have, very good at cooking. And I think I'd do like a Vietnamese spread. I'm really into making ramen at the moment and pho, like noodle soups. So I'm going to make them all that. And I'm going to do like spring rolls, summer rolls, satay, garlic sauteed vegetables. And yeah, I'm going to do a whole Vietnamese feast for me. And
you would need to have Christopher Walken on it because he's time on Deer Hunter, because that was set in Vietnam, wasn't it? So you would need to have...
I didn't think of that. It might trigger him.
Yeah.
Is that what you're worried about? It might Vietnamese food might trigger him.
I think just Jack Nicholson and Bjork alone, like the interaction between they two would be...
Yeah. It might be fiery.
See that, aye.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be there might be a few fights, and I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I'd definitely film it. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we could stick it on Zoom, and then I could come as well.
Yeah, you're invited too, mate. Definitely.
Yeah. But I mean, there are really good choices as well, and I don't think any of them have been picked by anybody, so it just kind of shows your character a bit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So those are the guys I want to have around this table I'm sat at right now. And yeah, Vietnamese food. Hopefully Walken won't get triggered by the Vietnamese food and he'll be all right. I think Bjork would probably start a fight with Jack Nicholson, I reckon. And yeah, I'd film the whole thing and it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Brilliant, man. Oh, brilliant choices. That's us at the end. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me
on my podcast. And I'll post all your links for all your stuff in the show notes.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.